everybody. Come in. Welcome to the Star Wars Report podcast. It's episode 159. I'm Riley Blanton, your host for this evening. Founder of the Star Wars Report here, and all-around huge Star Wars fan. And I'm super excited about a very fun show that we have for you guys tonight. And I'm going to start everything off by introducing my good friend and yours. It's the one, it's the only. He's not a bowler hat wearing this time. No, he's a microphone welding and collection setting uppin'. Okay. It sounded better in my head. It's Mark Hurleman, everybody.
Setting up and what's funny, something came over me last night and it hasn't stopped. I mean, last night I was putting all the figures on the shelves, getting them set up in rows 2 by 2 like they're going on the Ark. And then today I decided I'm like, oh, it's 12. I've got time before Star Wars Report. And I just rearranged the bedroom. Wife hasn't even came home and seen it yet. So I was like, you sent the first call to start testing. I'm like, hold on, I gotta put the clothes away. Oh my God, she's gonna kill me. So I got it down to one big pile of clean clothes that I've got to put back in the closet. But yeah, hopefully she won't be too irate with me. But yeah, man, I've been unpacking and loading things up and situating. I mean, even though I've got so many behind me, it's still sad because I want to see them all. And I've got them, like I said, 2 rows deep. So I've got a wall outside my studio space that I could encroach upon down the road that I'm thinking pegboard might be nice.
Yeah, well, fair enough. No, I'll tell you what. Man, it's looking good. It's looking good. And for those of you guys listening to this via audio podcast, which is everybody, Mark's collection is looking increasingly fabulous as you have everything set up there in the palatial Grants Pass, Oregon annex of the Star Wars Report broadcasting studios. But no, man, it's looking good. It's looking good. But we've got a lot to talk about tonight. It's been a big week of Star Wars news. A big week is even kind of an understatement. It's been a huge week for Star Wars news. We have the release dates for the next 2 Star Wars films, a new cast member announced, and the titles and no small amount of information for a veritable ton of Star Wars books being released between now and the time of The Force Awakens all the way up to Episode 8. And we're going to talk about all here on the Star Wars Report podcast, and I'm going to bring in a very good friend of mine for a long time and a fellow podcast host here on the Star Wars Report network. He's a co-host over at Star Wars Bookworms, the podcast. I think that's the technical title, right, Aaron? It's Aaron Goins, everybody.
Hey, what's up, guys?
That's on the official Celebration podcast stage description. It is like Star Wars Bookworms, the podcast, right?
Is it?
I mean, it should be.
We're going to have to change the T-shirts.
Oh, no, man. Actually, let's kick it up before we jump into like all the books news. Is what we're going to lead the show with. Let's talk about for just a hairy second. You guys are on the podcast stage at Star Wars Celebration. You and your co-host Teresa. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, we're on the podcast stage. I think it is. Man, you're putting me on the spot here. I think it's Friday of Celebration at 4:30 p.m. We will be on the podcast stage. We're going to have a couple guests. I think most of your listeners would be familiar with Mark Newbold from Star Wars Insider and a bunch of other stuff, and then Josh Stolt from Techno Retro Dads.
Nice.
They've both been on the show a number of times on Star Wars Bookworms, and back when we first put in our application, to submit to be on the podcast stage, we asked those guys if they'd be interested in doing it with us. So we got picked, and so yeah, it's gonna be me and Teresa and those 2 guys, and we have just plans just to have a fun conversation about books and comics. Really, not too much structure to the panel, just kind of talking about some of our favorites, some of the highlights throughout the years, and we'll have some cool giveaways, and we actually have a pin that's being done by an official Star Wars artist that we can't announce yet. And so we'll have a collector's pin that will be given out. So, yeah, all kinds of cool stuff.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, no, I can't wait. And I'm sad because you guys are the official, you're the only Star Wars Report podcast on the stage, because as I told, I think in a previous week's episode, like it was entirely through my fault. I just did not apply because there was like a really sketchy time where I wasn't sure if I could even make it to Star Wars Celebration. So I will be there, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be at the back of the crowd. and I'll just be probably shouting out random Star Wars characters and say, will they be in the next book? Is Jada Solo going to be in the book? Is Jada?
So you're going to troll our panel.
Exactly. I mean, somebody's got to bring in the masses, Aaron, and the news of me trolling your panel is certainly going to bring in the crowds.
Oh, heckling, we would be honored.
No. In all seriousness, I will be there because I'm super excited for you guys. That's a really cool opportunity, and really a cool opportunity overall that Lucasfilm is recognizing the litany of Star Wars podcasts that have been blossoming in the last year or two. And man, it's really cool to see a bunch of friends of the show. And of course, we'll have more information on that. We'll put the time and date of that as well as the podcaster meetup that we're doing Thursday night at 6:30 at the Mixler Lounge at the Hilton. Yes, I'll just say Hilton. I'm sure I'll be right. I've never made a mistake before on air, so I'm sure that's going to be exactly correct. But no, we'll have information, a lot of breaking Celebration news. And we're going to do probably a big pregame Celebration show in the upcoming weeks with a couple of the folks who are actually, running the stuff that's happening there. So stay tuned for that. But before I guess we do all of that, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Star Wars Celebration, while mere weeks away, happening right now this week. What I thought would be the biggest Star Wars news of this week, which is indeed not, is the Journey to the Force Awakens project, extravaganza, marketing push. What are they calling this? This is the official. I guess
it's a journey, man.
It's like
lace up them shoes and get ready to go on a hike, man. It starts this fall. When it first came out and they were talking about 20 books, this ranges from, comics, regular adult books to kids books to even sticker books. So I was like, okay, 20 books with sticker books included. That's not that many books. But then when you're like, this is all coming out in fall, and you got to keep in mind that, episode 7's hitting in December, early, half of December is December 18th still. So, at fall, we're looking at like the end of September time around there. So you've only got like a 3-month window here to read 20 pieces of work if you're going to read it all. But there's a whole bunch of different things here. There's Star Wars, The Lost Stars, Star Wars Moving Target, which is a Princess Leia adventure. Smuggler's Run, a Han Solo one, Weapon of the Jedi, a Luke Skywalker one. There's so many different ones out there that have been announced and they're still getting announced. There's Aftermath, which sounds very interesting as well. Each day there's been a little bit more revealed. They've got some people are making some crazy little, not official covers, but they've got the title that StarWars.com's dropped and are adding these little placeholder things and, adding what little synopsis we have here and there and kind of fleshing it out. And it provides us an interesting opportunity to realize that Disney's kind of going full tilt at dropping as many points in the timeline of what they're considering their critical timeline right now and kind of fleshing it out in a short period of time. I'm in the middle of Tarkin, well, probably closer to the end of Tarkin. I was listening to that while I was rearranging today and last night. And that's one of the things that's really striking me. I love my EU, but I love the fact that names and planets and stuff like that are making the jump across. I was hearing planets and stuff that I wouldn't have thought would have been, named Terrace was one of them. And I was like, nice, just hearing them coming across like that is great. And so having this opportunity where we got stories set between each of the films of the classic era and all that stuff and stuff coming out after Return of the Jedi, I'm really excited about what we're going to be building towards the new movie.
I have to confess, it was a bit of a surprise at the sheer volume of material that's coming out. But Aaron, I've got to toss this to you. When this announcement came, was it a surprise to you, the volume of material coming out? And I guess as a follow-up, what has you most excited?
Well, I saw the sensationalized headline first, and it was like 20 new books coming. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be like the new Jedi Order, except in a matter of 3 months. But then after you start reading the actual article, it's like, oh, that just means there's 20 total or more, but, they're including sticker books and comics and all this other stuff in there. So really we haven't heard too much about, adult novels. The only adult novel that's been announced is Star Wars Aftermath. And then we're getting some of the young adult novels, which the Lost Stars one looks interesting to me because the way they're describing that is kind of Romeo and Juliet type story across a number of these young adult novels that will kind of cross different eras of Star Wars, which I think is an interesting way of telling a story, and it should be, new characters. But the rest of the stuff, the Princess Leia adventure, Han Solo adventure, stuff like that, those aren't as exciting to me. It doesn't even look like those are going to be set after Return of the Jedi. Just kind of, adventures that they had before. Yeah. So, but they did just announce the comic. What was the title of that, Mark? Is it like Shattered Empire?
I think it is Shattered Empire, actually. I was looking for that one, too. Because right now I've got Aftermath pulled up, which it's going to be $28, hardcover, 320 pages. Its synopsis is the second Death Star is destroyed. The Emperor and his powerful enforcer Darth Vader are rumored to be dead. The Galactic Empire is in chaos. Across the galaxy, some systems celebrate, while in others, Imperial factions tighten their grip. Optimism and fear reign side by side, and while the Rebel Alliance engages the fractured forces of the Empire, a lone Rebel scout uncovers a secret Imperial meeting. And that's the one that's set after Return of the Jedi. I think I'm with you, Aaron. I'm more excited for that. I mean, when it came to Legends and stuff, the post Return of the Jedi era was always my favorite story. I loved the current Luke, and following him from that moment, jumping into the Truce of Baraka or Bakira or whatever it's called, and going through his adventures as he set up the academy and all that stuff. So coming from this point and seeing where we're going, I'm excited and I'm trepidatious at the same time because, Legends showed us that, even 45 years after the Battle of Yavin, the Empire was still around in some form, and it was always still like this threat that, they were always trying to work a peace with them and stuff, and that drug on for so long that I really kind of hope we don't have the same type of thing. So I'm kind of like really looking forward to seeing where the Empire is at this point and what the stage they're going to set. I think this book especially is really going to prime it. If the Empire is still a mighty empire, and just because they've lost the Emperor, it hasn't affected them that much. It's like, well, we could be, tighten up the helmets, boys. We're going to be in for the long haul. Or we could find that it's one of those where the Empire is collapsing on itself and the rebellion is making huge advances and are slowly conquering and freeing system after system.
So I saw something today that apparently the author of that novel hasn't been officially announced, but I guess somebody found it on like Amazon. Have you heard that?
Really? No.
It's Chuck Wendig?
Chuck Wendig, which is a name that I'm not super familiar with. I actually just trying to Google him here to see what else he's written. Looks like he's written some vampire novels and stuff. So it's kind of interesting if this is true, if he is the author, that they're not going with the typical stable of authors. So far with the new canon, we've gotten a few authors, but they've all been used before. We've gotten John Jackson Miller and we've gotten James Luceno. So like we've heard from them before, and now they're writing in the new canon. But this is a new author, so that's an interesting choice as well if it turns out to be accurate.
Well, and the Luke Skywalker one, The Weapon of the Jedi, that one's done by Jason Fry, who many people will know. And Luke Skywalker returns on an all-new adventure in this thrilling upper-middle grade novel. Set between A New Hope and Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, the story finds Luke Skywalker, 3PO, and R2-D2 stranded on a mysterious planet and explores Luke's first-ever duel with a lightsaber. Hidden in the story are also clues and hints about the upcoming film, The Force Awakens. And that's something that they're putting at the back of all of these. So it's like,
that's smart. You know
hints.
You know exactly what they're doing there too. And that's a brilliant marketing idea. Is the idea that we have this film coming out, and any morsel of information, especially that we can get from sources, is good. And it's interesting because, like with the new canon so far, I started the audiobook to A New Dawn, and that's my only foray into the new canon. But I never finished it. I got almost halfway through, but it just really wasn't keeping my interest. And Mark, you talked to me and said that it did get better towards the end, and I think a lot of it was because at the time I really didn't have much of a connection with the characters, with Hera or Kanan, and maybe now having finished the first season of Rebels, I should go back and finish that. But it really didn't. I have to confess, it really did not pull me in a whole lot. And I think, go ahead.
Well, see, Tarkin is doing the same thing where it started out, and I'm doing that one audiobook, so I mainly blame the narrator on that one. I really have come to love Mark Thompson's work, and the Vader that this guy does, I believe his name's Ewan. It's not as keen, but I love his Tarkin though. And it started out kind of dull, and that one also picked up. And I don't know, maybe it's because of that fact that they have to establish certain things, or maybe it's that I'm seeking those certain things because I don't know what's there yet. Because when I think about how I took my trip into Legends, it was that way, where it seemed more boring, the earlier books, and it wasn't until I'd read like at least 10 or so books, and then I went back and reread them, and I was like, oh, and that, you know. So I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, well, you're just waiting for it to build up. But Tarkin too, it was like once it got halfway in, it started to get a lot more explosive, and I was like, oh right, I'm really digging the relationship between Vader and Tarkin, and the pecking order there, and some of the stuff going on. There's some really cool stuff about a Sith temple on Coruscant that the Jedi happen to have their order on top of, that was part of the Sith's plan all along. I mean, I'm just like, oh, they're seeing some really cool things here. And John Jackson Miller did the same thing with A New Dawn, but it was much more subtle. You know, that one was much more a character-driven story, whereas while Tarkin's character-driven, it's also doing a lot of world building with subtle references to things that were in the EU. And as such, by referencing them, those names of those planets and stuff come across. As to what those planets were, that still has, you know, yet to be written. But at least the names are coming across, and that gets me excited.
I can definitely see that. Although, so Aaron, you're definitely, probably more than any of us, are you completely caught up in like the new canon? Have you followed up with each of the books that have come out?
The only thing I haven't read is the Heir to the Jedi.
Okay.
In the process of reading that one, but the comics and the novels so far that have come out, I've been keeping up with.
Well, I've got to ask you. So, where are you with the novels? Is there much of a change in terms of the storytelling style or the writing style that you've noticed? Is there something that's brought you in more or less so than the old expanded universe days?
The only thing, I mean, really, they seem very similar. You know, like I was saying before, they're using some of the same authors they've used before. And I think really, if you're not really in the know that anything changed, you could pick up something like, you know, A New Dawn or Tarkin and not even realize it's in a different canon. You know, they don't necessarily blatantly contradict anything that's come before yet. I'm sure that'll change with new novels coming out soon. But for now, really, it all still just kind of feels, you know, they're using a lot of the same terminology, like Mark said, a lot of the same planets. You know, I think they even talk about Calf. You know, it still seems very familiar.
Calf made it into the new canon.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well,
dude, toilets, man. Tarkin, they talk about toilets and refreshers more than any other book. I'm like, whoa, the toilets are down. That's gonna get stinky on this ship.
Yeah, Calf's actually been in Rebels, which
wait, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? Where was Calf in Rebels?
It was in one of the episode guides. It wasn't necessarily they didn't say the word calf on screen, but in one of the episode guides they referred to what Kanan was handing Hera in one of the in the coffee mug was calf. You know, they referred to it as a specific kind of calf. But so far the only thing I'll say about the new canon is nothing has gotten me super excited yet. New Dawn was all right. Tarkin, you know, I've never been a big fan of Imperials. And just non-Force users in general. You know, Heir to the Jedi, I'm not hearing great things about.
Same here. Like, and I know, I think we've got our review coming up on the site soon. But with Heir to the Jedi, it sounded like a very interesting concept that could be exactly up your alley, Aaron. But it you know, it doesn't seem to have captured the minds of at least the folks I've talked to as much as it could have, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the next two to come out. You know, we have Lords of the Sith coming out. I typically like Paul Kemp's stuff. I know he's kind of a controversial writer. You love him or hate him, but I typically like his stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing the dynamic between the Emperor and Vader and how they're tying in Hera Syndulla's father into that story. It seems like then also Dark Disciple. I mean, that's Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos. Quinlan Vos is my favorite, you know, EU character. So the fact that they're dragging him into canon in a full novel, you know, that's exciting to me as well. So I think there's some good stuff coming, and all these announcements of these books that are coming out, you know, I'm pretty excited about it. The Marvel one that they just showed today, the new cover for for Empire. What is it called here?
Yeah,
Shattered Empire.
I've got it.
Shattered
That's by
Empire.
Phil Noto.
Yeah, I mean, the cover looks awesome. You know, the title's cool, Shattered Empire, and this is going to be, you know, our first comic story set after Return of the Jedi in this new canon. We get to see where these characters start going. You know, we're going to get to see where they kind of end up in The Force Awakens, but how did they get there? And that's going to be covered in books and comics, it looks like. So I'm excited.
Which pause for a second. Let's all talk about Lando Calrissian on this cover for a second. He's got the biggest grin, looking off at something. I don't even want to speculate. Anyway, he's
obviously clapping along to the Yub Nub song. That's what's happening there.
Yeah.
Which is straight out of the film, as I recall. Wasn't he like the only one clapping there though? What in the end of Return of the Jedi? He's just like standing there going, "Hey man," he's like, "Yeah."
He had the rhythm, man. But you know, I mean, Aftermath set after Return of the Jedi. You've got Luke's one set between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Han's Smuggler's Run is also set between Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope. But Leia's Moving Target one is actually set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
How about that? Well, and that's so. I mean, it's a litany of content. It's not just all, I guess, directly leading into Episode 7. And to be honest, this cover does look great. And it was released just an hour or so before the show went live. So it's pretty cool to actually see that Marvel's they characterize it as Marvel's first entry into the journey to Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So they really are kind of pushing this brand of storytelling. Even though it's not all directly related. And I don't want to be an entire wet blanket. I put a few notes in the show notes, and this, I guess, we'll close out your moment, Aaron. I don't want to take too much of your time because I know you have to bug out in just a moment. But I do want to say, as far as comics go, I recently picked up Darth Vader #1. Of course, it is a Disney property official Star Wars comic, but not part of this official Journey to the Force Awakens, and I really liked it. I thoroughly. It's sort of like that robot chicken bit, but flipped on its head. You know, like right after that phone call that Palpatine has to receive from Vader. But instead, it's like the serious version of it, where Vader's dealing with the reality that he failed entirely for this giant project that the.
What do you mean you blow up the Death Star? How do you blow up a Death Star? How do you lose it?
What the hell is an aluminum falcon? But no, it featured Vader traveling to Tatooine and dealing with Jabba the Hutt and hiring, Boba Fett to go find this Luke Skywalker. It was just a very riveting comic that is the exact kind of storytelling I like, that ties so closely to the films. And so, not to be a complete downer on the new canon, that comic, I think, is my favorite thing recently, Star Wars, that I've consumed.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, Marvel's doing a good job with the new stuff. All the #1s were interesting. This era just in general doesn't interest me, so I'm not going to be as excited maybe as others would be. But yeah, I was happy with all of the start of the series. And I like how they're all kind of tying together. The Vader one was definitely interesting and unexpected. Who would have thought we would have seen Vader, hitting up Tatooine in that era and, coming face to face with Jabba the Hutt. That's something that, just you wouldn't expect. And I'm glad that they're doing these things that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Aaron. With this new, I'd say in the last 2 weeks, the amount of stuff we've gotten, both in names and little synopses and reveals in season finales of Rebels and so forth, do you think that when we get a book like Dark Disciple, that there might be a possibility where we see some characters from the Clone Wars pop up? Most notably, I'll keep it spoiler free, but I know you know who I'm talking about here, but the one that's revealed at the end of the season finale, and then the other one being, because of who was used in the finale, Darth Maul, because as we know in Son of Dathomir, he's alive and he's with Mandalorian Death Watch. So, I constantly go back to, well, why would you just bring him alive and do all that stuff in your canon stuff to not use him again? And I was thinking about it more, and I was like, the only thing that's got Darth Maul really on the run right now is Darth Sidious. And once Sidious is out of the picture with Darth Vader, if Maul's still around at that point and hasn't been used, I mean, what's not to say that Maul might be a threat down the road?
Yeah, I mean, for Dark Disciple specifically, I know it's based on scripts from the Clone Wars, and from something I was hearing from, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was somebody that would be in the know. They were saying the novel's not necessarily only based on one story arc, but actually 2 story arcs that were planned for the Clone Wars. So that would both feature, Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress. As far as Maul goes, that the comic that we got, The Son of Dathomir, even though he didn't, spoiler alert, he didn't die in that comic. And so we know he's still out there in the galaxy. They did seem to have some sort of almost like a finality to it when he was kind of off, like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I'm tired of this. I'm going to go, head off into the galaxy and get away from these people. I don't know. I don't expect that we'll see him back anytime soon, but, it would be, he is definitely still alive, so you never know.
And in perfect hibernation. I don't know. I have not read Son of Dathomir, but I need to. I hear it's good. So if I'm reading Vader, I can certainly. If I've made my first foray into Star Wars comics in some time, I think I need to continue the obsession because I am all in. I've already picked up Vader #2, though I've not read it yet. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how that story concludes, as well as the continuing canon, because that's the nature of it. As Star Wars publishing moves forward with this volume and this variety of creativity, there isn't a magic wand that's going to suddenly make everything that's produced out of Lucasfilm something that we all love. But still, I love the fact that we are still getting a variety of storytelling, and that's really probably the most encouraging part. But before we move on to like the big news of the week, Aaron, I'll give you your parting shot. I know you got to head out. Before we head out, Rogue One. What's your thoughts?
Rogue One, man. I have 30 seconds. No, man, yeah, I know you guys are going to talk about it in more depth, but yeah, I'm excited for the possibilities. The title doesn't tell us a ton, but it could tell us a lot. It's obviously, it sounds like it would be something to do with a pilot, at least, if not an X-Wing pilot, based on the fact that they're saying that the cast member that they've announced is a female, and they're calling her the female lead. So, is the main character of this movie going to be a female X-Wing pilot? That would be pretty awesome. So, and Rogue One almost implies that, that's the rogue leader, right? And Rogue One would be the rogue leader. So there's a lot that we don't know, but we can definitely infer a lot just from those 2 words. So
unlike that,
I'm really excited.
Unlike the poor soul,
really excited. Unlike
the poor soul Rogue 2, who saved Han Solo's life and gets no love. Although, how amazing would it be if they announced this movie was all about Rogue 2? This is Rogue 2. I found them. Repeat. I found them. All right, Aaron, thanks so much for swinging by the Star Wars Report podcast. Where can folks find you before you jump out?
Check me out on my podcast. We were talking about it before, Star Wars Bookworms. We'd love for you to check us out, listen in if you're into the books and comics. If you listen to Star Wars Beyond the Films, you'd probably like us too. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Find me on Twitter at @avgoins, but have fun talking about all this other awesome news. I wish I could stick around, guys.
I understand. You're a busy man, a Renaissance professional, I might add, is the one, the only Aaron Goins, who, by the way, does an amazing Matthew McConaughey impression. We'll get on that later. But we'll let you go, Aaron. We'll talk to you soon, man.
See you guys.
Have a good one, man. See you at Celebration.
Woo!
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the unique, the dashing Aaron Goins, hanging out with
Goins,
us.
gone.
Well said, sir. So man, there's a lot to talk about this week, Mark, but I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Being a Star Wars fan is definitely a strange experience these days.
Dude, strange experiences. So I'm going through that big box of my figures, and at the very bottom, there's this really cool lithograph, like episode 1 poster that I found. I'm like, I have no idea how I got it, but it is so cool. It's got that kind of Topps playing card style, like, the one every 500, you get that really cool emblazed one. I don't know, man. I totally dig it, but I have no clue where I got it from.
Your collection amazes me. to be honest. And although it's like we planned it. Speaking of tops, we have a giveaway to announce. Last week, of course, we were giving away the 100 pack of Star Wars Rebels Tops cards, trading cards from the good folks at Tops. And we have a winner. Drum roll, please.
Oh, wait, that's a machine gun.
No, not that. No, wrong sound effect.
Round of applause.
No, we have Jeff Kumfer, who says, we were, of course, asking for your favorite Rebels character and why. He says, my favorite Rebels character is Chopper. He's cranky and mischievous, but ultimately good-hearted. My daughters love him too. And he mentions the Tops giveaway, which of course was a requirement for the Facebook post. I was surprised. A lot of you guys, I was going to try to make it like a small little intimate thing to only be like for you guys listening to the podcast and then also going to our Facebook page and posting about it. And there's a lot of you guys who did. But Jeff, you are the winner. The way to claim your prize is simply email us starwarsreport@gmail.com. And we will get in touch with you and get your mailing information, and the folks at Tops will email you. The only requirement is be sure to share it with your daughters, because if they love Chopper, they're going to love the Tops trading cards. And we appreciate the folks at Tops for doing the giveaway.
This is the Star Wars Report Podcast. John Williams is the man.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have there are times as a Star Wars podcaster that there's some interesting news that you want to talk about on the show, and then there are times as a Star Wars podcaster where there's some amazing news that you really have to talk about on the show. So this was breaking just the other day. The next Star Wars film has a title. It has an actress. And we have release dates for both the next Star Wars spin-off film and Star Wars Episode 8. And it's all here on StarWars.com. It's official, Mark. We can believe it. So here it is. Without further ado, Star Wars Rogue One to be released December 2016. And starring the beautiful and talented Felicity Jones. Mark, your thoughts?
Man, I'm excited for Rogue One. I mean, no joke here. I'm privy to the title Rogue. I live in the Rogue Valley off the Rogue River in the Rogue Forest. I mean, Rogue it up, Mm-hmm. My favorite X-Man, Rogue. So yeah, the Rogue Squadron, if that's what this implies, I will be tickled. Me and you were talking about this the day we found out. And one of the things that jumps out to me, again, I'm a huge Legends fan, and one of my favorite book series was the X-Wing book series, which was based on Wedge regrouping Rogue Squadron together and getting it back up. And one of the first lines in that was, "You're no Luke Skywalker." And it was, I believe it was Wedge talking to Karan Horn. And it became kind of Karan and Wedge's story to a degree, because as it went on, you find out that Karan ends up being Force, he's got the Force and that kind of stuff. And as his character ends up progressing, you eventually find out he becomes a Jedi and all that stuff. But that was kind of just a side plot for the most part of the X-Wing stuff. For the most part, it was about the regular rank and file Rebels, about the gifted pilots and stuff like that. Those that didn't really have the Force. Although Karan's, he was the one exception in the main cast. But my son Gavin is named after Gavin Darklighter, Biggs Darklighter's cousin. The character was a great character. He came up in those books. And, again, it was the struggle of what it was like to be the regular guys in their cockpits and the way that the writers captured it. That really captured me. And so thinking about, a Rogue Squadron book being turned into a movie where we get a Rogue One, there's all sorts of excitement in that range. But then there's this other thought that dawned on me as Aaron was leaving. Home One is a Mon Calamari big capital ship. And what if Rogue One is something similar, that the rogues are on a big capital ship of their own, and it's Rogue One. And, maybe this girl isn't rogue leader per se, but maybe she's the captain of that ship, and it's her responsibility to take the rogues from, location to location, to battle, in similar ways that when the New Jedi Order was going, you would see Gavin Darklighter as an admiral take the ships and do their fights. So there's so many different angles that could go, which gets back to what I was saying earlier in this episode about how, with the aftermath. Yes. The post, Return of the Jedi, what it's going to look like, that's got me the most excited in how that could play out. One of the shows that you and I both really enjoy, as well as Star Wars and Star Trek, is Battlestar Galactica and the space battles and stuff that they had in there. And I'm thinking, if we had something where we had, like the miniseries, when you had those first battles and stuff, or when you had the Battle of New Caprica, when the Battlestar Galactica itself dropped into the atmosphere, those huge battles, I'm like, that's what I want to see from Rogue One. I'm really hoping for something that's very militaristic, but it's more from the Rebels' point of view. That would be something that would really just get me fist pumping, man.
Yeah. No, there are a ton of possibilities and, of course, a lot of speculation going on. I think it's fascinating because there were so many rumors. The Boba Fett movie, the Han Solo movie. I mean, goodness, the Jabba the Hutt movie at some point is what we were thinking this first spinoff would be. But the idea of it being Rogue One, it has to be an X-Wing story. Now, of course, Rogue Squadron is a huge X-Wing series in terms of the canonical films. They played a huge role in the Battle of Hoth. And you had Rogue Squadron piloting, of course, all the snow speeders. So it's going to be interesting to see when the film is set, and then, of course, what role Felicity Jones is playing. Because the press release just talks, very specifically says, we're happy to announce the first actress, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but the first actress will be Felicity Jones. But Bob Iger, which I heard the audio, Bob Iger in the actual Disney shareholder meeting where they announced all of this stuff, specifically characterized her as the star of the film. So I think we will have a female X-Wing pilot as the star of this, the next Star Wars film after The Force Awakens, which I think would be amazing.
See, and I love the fact that it's the shareholder meeting where all this came from. Because I was saying when it first went to Disney, I'm like, man, we need to get into the shares, get that shareholders letter because they're going to be the first ones to find out everything, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, those. It's funny because the shareholder meeting, all the information is in the actual press release, which is where we're going to get most of the stuff we're going to talk about. But they also, I haven't seen it online, but evidently they did show some concept art from the film. Now, so a couple other interesting things. Of course, as already previously, I guess, suspected, but now officially confirmed, it's to be directed by Gareth Edwards, who of course did Godzilla, and it's going to be written by Oscar nominee Chris Weitz, who wrote Cinderella, which I just saw last night, actually, as I record this. It was very good. It's funny because you remember Maleficent. Last year it came out, of course.
Yeah, that was a good one too, man.
It was like its own dark version of Sleeping Beauty. It's kind of like a twist on the original fairy tale with a modern spin. This Cinderella, conversely, is basically a true, straight-up adaptation, unapologetically fairy tale-ish version of Cinderella. And it's interesting because Chris Weitz, as a writer, if I were to compare it to the only other work, which is, of course, Cinderella, it's almost corny, but in a way that might work well for a Star Wars movie. Because the Star Wars movie dialogue has never, been like the selling point of the films, right? So it could be interesting that Chris Weitz is taking over and punching it up because, of course, as previously known, the previous writer, who is noticeably absent from this press release, by the way, is Gary Whitta, who wrote the first draft. And, when this press release came out, it's no mention of Mr. Gary Whitta, who was announced as the writer about this time last year, almost a year ago, at Star Wars Weekends. I remember we were all talking about it because the news broke, and within a matter of hours of us discovering that Gary Whitta was the writer, there were all these forum posts that people were digging up where he was very harshly critical of the prequels. And so anyway, I think it's kind of interesting. I'm sure there's something going on behind the scenes there. But yeah, no Gary Whitta in this press release.
You know, and I got to admit, you know, the other thing that was intriguing was that it gave us dates to not only was this coming out, but also when episode 8's coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly as thrilled about it. I mean, yeah, I'm excited when we get like almost, you know, 2 Star Wars films within a 6-month period. That's exciting. But I was really thinking that we were going to see, you know, episodes 7, 8, and 9 all as December releases. I was really looking forward to Disney and Lucasfilm building a new era of, you know, of winter and Christmas holiday style releases. You know, bring your family, bring your friends, come together, my friend. Let's all do the kumbaya and watch some Star Wars, chop them up, yeah. And so having that shifted like that, you know, I get it. Yeah, Star Wars has always been in May. I'm a rock the boat guy, you know, like I'm not the guy like, hey, let's all just jump off the cliff. We've been doing it for years kind of guy. Like, no, I want to question the system, you know, shake it up a bit. But it's weird though that these two are so close, because does that then mean after episode 8, it could possibly be quite a while before we see another one? Because I thought they were really going to be staggered within a year apart. And that one puts one of them really close to another one.
Well, and to be honest, you remember on the original announcement, Mark, they did say, Bob Iger very cheerily said, I'm super excited to announce we're doing a Star Wars film every year. And so we're like, oh, wow, one a year. That's a whole lot. But, you know, so we've got a year between episode 7 and the spinoff film, but then only 6 months to wait until the, you know, proper episode 8. So it begs me, I just wonder if they're going, I don't know. I think it's a matter of Disney trying to simply balance the amount of tentpole films. Which, let's just talk about that for a second. Disney is just going to own the movie industry. Because think about this.
Especially May.
So May 2017, you've got Guardians of the Galaxy coming out the first week of May, and then Star Wars coming out the last week of May. They own that month.
Yeah.
Which is just, you know, ridiculously... 2017 is going to be an amazing... So is 2016. I mean, all of the next, 5 years, we're going to have amazing movies in the theaters every week.
We're not going to get any movie then in December of 2017.
I wouldn't bet on it.
I would almost say it's a guaranteed no. I mean, they said one movie a year, and that would put us in the realm of 2, which would mean that 2017 is probably the year that we're done with Star Wars movies in December. Because after that, I could just see them putting every one of them in May.
You just think May as the... You know,
I don't want that. I want to see them, but because they use it for all the Marvel stuff, and I don't know. I mean, May is so coveted, but at the same time, it's like Star Wars is kind of unfair. But at some point, you're going to get to that point in May where you're like, yeah, another Star Wars movie in May. Okay, I'm done. What else do we got? You're going to get fans to get to that saturation point. So, you know, I like the idea of having it in December as well, but it is weird because, yeah, now, so if in 2017 you have it in May, then you don't want to do 2018 in December then, because now you're looking at over a year and a half wait. So it's going to have to be 2018 is going to be in May as well. So they're going to have to get shifting slowly maybe into August time to get closer to December. Because, yeah, you've bumped it up. You got 2 movies within 6 months. But at some point, where are you going to get back to that year gap?
Well, and that, you know, Mark, I have to confess, I hadn't really thought about it. But you bring up, I think a really good point. I think you've discovered their plan. I think that this is the shift back to May. Because it looks like, so for 2017... which is the farthest out, episode 8. Of course, they also confirmed officially the worst kept secret in Hollywood history. Rian Johnson is directing it. He's been on different podcasts and interviews talking about how excited he is about working on this movie. But we actually have it officially confirmed through Disney. Rian Johnson writing and directing episode 8. Of course, he wrote and directed Looper, which is kind of his best known work. But he's a pretty young, up and coming director. But hey, I mean, so was Jon Favreau when Disney, not Disney, but when Marvel hired him to do Iron Man, the first one. So I mean, it's worked for them so far. But this schedule, I think what Disney to add on to your theory, Mark, what Disney's probably doing is you look at that May release frame. So you've got May 2017, the beginning of the month they've got Guardians of the Galaxy 2, end of the month they've got Star Wars. If you look at May 2018, the subsequent year, they've already claimed May 4th, the beginning of May, as Avengers Infinity War, Part 1. So the next Avengers film. And so if we follow your logic, Mark, the end of that month could be the subsequent spin-off film within, of course, a May 2019th a May 29th release of Star Wars Episode 9. I'm getting myself confused, but I think I've got it in order. That's kind of what
leads
I'm
me to
thinking.
believe, though, that they would have gone with Episode 7 in May, but I think they knew that if they'd have done that, they'd have rushed it.
Yeah.
You know, I truly think that because if that is going to be the shift, that's, you know, they probably wanted to have that one coming out in May too, but knew there was no way around it. And I'm a huge fan of the December one, and so hearing that one was coming out like that, knowing that the sequel films are coming out 2 years apart, 7, then you got 2 years 8, then 2 years 9, and then knowing you were going to have the single films in between those, it definitely made me stop and scratch my head, going, wow, that's 6 months. Like, okay. That's great now, but how long do I have to wait till I get it? Because I've been playing that Star Wars Commander game, and every time I rush something, I'm like, well, now I got to wait even longer to get more coins because I didn't do it right. I rushed the game.
Fair enough. Great game, by the way. So, but yeah, it was huge news as it broke. I have to confess, I was at ROTC because it was announced on a Thursday, and I had just wrapped it up. Wrapped up my day at ROTC, and I was sitting at one of the campus computers, and I saw this news break, and I was just really thrilled. There were a number of cadets there, and I kind of wanted to tell a quick side story before we wrap up the show, and that is at the cadets, the detachment were asking me about the upcoming Star Wars films and how much they like the Marvel movies, and how excited they were for the upcoming Star Wars films, and it just really kind of hit me. How much, I mean, obviously within the geek community, Disney's already proved themselves with Marvel and Pixar and, you name it. Disney has a huge amount of surplus in their bank account of trust with the fan community.
See, I gotta ask you a question, though.
It's also translated to just the normal moviegoer, based on my conversation that day when folks were asking about Star Wars, which is kind of interesting. So you were saying, Mark?
Well, how old was this person you were discussing this with?
Like 21, 22.
Because, okay, see, I'm noticing there is a distinct shift in optimism with the new stuff. Everyone I know that's over 30 is not as optimistic as everyone I know under 30.
Yeah.
And I find myself on the odds because I'm over 30, but I'm being optimistic. But I think that in this case, being an EU fan for as long as I have has gotten me to that point where I'm okay with letting go more. I think because, a lot of my friends are like having a really hard time letting go and letting Disney have reign. And I'm like, well, dude, it's not really Disney. It's Lucasfilm still has control of the ball. But yeah, a lot of them, like, they're wanting to get back to the original trilogy. But they're afraid that the prequel trilogy is still going to taint it. It's really bizarre. Profiling going on here with the different people I know, that they fall into those certain profiles. I'm like, wow, you really are the classic guy only, aren't you? And then I've got another friend that they really love the prequels, and so I've noticed that reactions are mixed, but the biggest thing that I've noticed is the age difference. Yeah.
Well, and there is that kind of demographic divide. I don't think it's like a concrete rule, but I can see that. And I don't know. I think it's probably just a matter of age. The era of Star Wars that, people my age and younger know are the Clone Wars, and it's immensely popular. People really like it. But really just there is a bit of a divide, but I think once The Force Awakens comes out, that will really be gone. I really do have faith that this movie will ultimately unite the fan community and just the general casual Star Wars fans in a way that they never have been before. I truly do believe that.
The public audience could go two ways. I mean, it still, I think for you and I, it boggles our minds when you hear people in the common public or on TV shows talk about the prequel trilogies being a flop and that kind of stuff. And yet the overall public opinion seems to be that the prequels were not as good as the original trilogies and therefore they were a flop. And I would hate for this next trilogy to come out and that be the same mindset. I would love to see the new trilogy come out and everybody be like, yes, you know, even though I disagree that I think the prequels were good, but I would love to see the mindset of, yes, Star Wars has been fixed, you know, like I would like to see it being heralded as a very good thing versus no, something else about Star Wars that sucks. Because, you know, you and I, we don't have that issue, but there are some Star Trek fans out there that are really hoping to get their due since theirs were messed with JJ, you know? And I'm like, I like JJ stuff.
I don't know.
They're like, I hated it.
Mark, I kind of have to disagree that at least on the point of, with the general public, I don't really think that, certainly to a larger extent than a lot of other franchises, that there was kind of a backlash to the prequels. But as far as like just the general overall movie-going audience, like if you want to measure it by Rotten Tomatoes audience scores or film critic reviews, I mean, tons of people went and saw those films and enjoyed them. Even if they were just kind of as popcorn films, they were a huge, huge cultural landmark in the late 90s and early 2000s. And sure, yeah, a lot of people, hardcore Star Wars fans, really didn't like them. But listen, I mean, like, you know how there's a general view amongst the kind of geek internet community that Star Trek Into Darkness wasn't very good? Right?
Yeah.
I pulled, just for the sake of argument, I pulled it up on Rotten Tomatoes. So, like, just the general movie-going audience that rated it. And again, these are pretty hardcore movie nerds that are visiting a site like Rotten Tomatoes and rating the film. It's at 90%. Yeah. It's at 90%. 90% of people liked it. With the critics, it's at 87% of critics liked it. So there's this weird, like, you know, I think disconnect with the blogosphere. That runs a little bit more negative overall, and that blogosphere may not like The Force Awakens, or may just decide that one of the spinoff films aren't very good. But Marvel's had that too. You know, there are these films like Iron Man 2, or the first Thor for some people, or maybe the first Captain America that people thought maybe were kind of so not as good. But for me, with the Marvel films, there's never been a Marvel film I walked out of the theater not having thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I'm fully confident that'll be the case with the next Star Wars films.
Yeah, the most difficult part is scratching your head going, why does everybody not like Amazing Spider-Man 2? I thought that was the best one yet.
Yeah, I mean, we need to have an Amazing Spider-Man 2 conversation. That would be amazing. See what I did there? See what I did there? Oh, man. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Star Wars Report podcast. Episode 159 is in the bag. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Those of you guys who joined us live, we are at StarWarsReport.com/live. I just set up that link. Pretty soon we're going to have live video. Right now we're broadcasting live every Friday evening, at least as long as my schedule allows, which is pretty set so far. So every Friday evening at 7 to 7:30 is our start time right now, and we get that more and more hammered down as I get the whole system in place. Man, tonight's been an absolutely amazing show. Huge Star Wars news to talk about. Man, I wish we could stay longer, but I can't. Got to bring this episode to a close. Thanks so much to the one, the only Aaron Goins of Star Wars Bookworms. You can find him on Twitter's at AVGoins, and of course the Star Wars Bookworms podcast to be found on iTunes and just about anywhere else you're looking for a Star Wars book podcast. And you can catch him on the Celebration podcast stage Friday, 4:30 p.m. local time at Star Wars Celebration. Oh man, sadly this episode comes to a close, but you're wondering, man, I enjoyed this episode. A lot of great Star Wars news and discussion and commentary that we're talking about. I enjoyed it. What should I do to stay involved with the Star Wars Report podcast? And there are a number of things you can do, but most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the show. If you go to StarWarsReport.com/iTunes, you can find our show on iTunes and subscribe. But go ahead and rate and review. That also really helps spread the word about the show. I really wanted to emphasize that, especially as we're getting on towards Star Wars Celebration and the Star Wars films. There are all kinds of folks looking for Star Wars podcasts. And if you want to help point them towards the Star Wars Report, that's what you want to do. You want to go to StarWarsReport.com/iTunes and let folks know. By the way, you can follow us on Twitter as well. I'm at The Riley Guy, and Mark is at Illogical Rogue 2. That's Illogical Rogue, the number 2. and that's where you can follow us on Twitter, always posting fun stuff throughout the week. And you can also hang out with us on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Star Wars Report. You can follow us on Twitter with 12,000 other people. Mark, by the way, we just crossed 12,000 on Twitter. That's pretty cool. I know. It's pretty cool. Follow us on Twitter at Star Wars Report, facebook.com/Star Wars Report. And finally, a couple of quick notes, programming notes. We've got some really special guests over the next 2-3 weeks leading into Celebration. I'm super excited. It looks like Mike Pilot of the Full of Sith podcast will be joining us shortly, as well as Steve Sansweet. Joining us in the weeks leading it up to Celebration. So plenty of good stuff coming your way from the Star Wars Report podcast. We'll be back next week. Last couple notes, if you want to find anything about our show and our site, just go to starwarsreport.com/about, and that is a great place to start out if you're unfamiliar with the show. So without further ado, you guys have a great week. Enjoy. Hopefully we'll see you at Star Wars Celebration. And remember, many Bothans died to bring you this podcast.
Without further ado, we bring to you R2.
What? Woo! Good show, mates.
Steve Sansweet, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good